Hello, my name is John Rose. In this video, I'd like to take a closer look at the difference between a raw food diet and a cooked food diet, especially a raw vegan and a cooked vegan diet. Now, many people are, let's say, the cooked food apologists rather. They like to say, well, raw food diets work short term, but they just don't work long term. We see these deficiencies. Well, why is that? Why does some raw food diets fail for some people? Well, there's a reason why it works and there's a reason why it might not work. The obvious reason why it works is because we're not eating the wrong foods anymore. Now, why it doesn't work long term has to do with the mistakes we've made. So if it doesn't work long term, if we end up with deficiencies, that's not an indictment on the raw food diet, it's an indictment on our mistakes. And what are our mistakes? Cooking our food. So for a cooked food apologist to even say, oh, cooked food is better, you guys are delusional, you're in denial. Whatever deceives men produces a magical enchantment. You're under the hunger spell. That's why we can't break away from this madness. Now, sure, we see raw food diets fail long term for the obvious reason that our ideal diet is our ideal diet in an ideal world. We don't live in an ideal world anymore. We've made mistakes. We've damaged ourselves, society, and the environment. We've got another group of needs. You can't use excuses, that's not our ideal diet because you've got a supplement or there's a deficiency. We have anatomical limitations and there are two of them. The first one is one we're given at birth. We have to respect those anatomical limitations. We're not carnivores, we're not omnivores, we're not grainivores, we're frugivores. And no one is supposed to cook their food, no animal is supposed to cook their food, it damages the food. Now, let me illustrate that point. Let's take a look at the research that Bose did. Sir Jagadish Bose, Chandra Bose, he did experiments with radiation. He found an interesting phenomenon. He goes, look at this. Minerals are responding just like animal tissue. So he postulated, wow, I wonder if plants will do the same thing. So he did experiments with plants, and it is nothing but short of miraculous as far as the information we found. That plants not only can communicate, but they can actually read our thoughts. And what's interesting about this experience is that the Royal Society refused to publish those results because it would have led to further research as to why these plants were able to do this. Why can plants do that? It's called a biophoton. How many times have I screamed at you guys, biophotons, biophotons? It's cellular communication. It's part of our sixth sense. Now what Bose did is he hooked up these plants to sophisticated equipment, and he would have people walk by these plants, and then one guy would come by and would destroy one of the plants. And all the plants started freaking out. Well, he would parade people by these plants all the time, but anytime that one guy went by, all the plants go, there he is, there he is. They knew who he was. And then he started thinking to himself, well, I wonder what I can do to get a reaction out of these plants. I wonder if I set them on fire. And the thought of doing that, the plants go, he wants to set us on fire. And then he goes, oh, this is unbelievable. And then he goes, well, I wonder if they can read my thoughts when I'm 10 miles away downtown. So he set up the cameras and he went downtown and he says, I'm just going to think of this randomly whenever I decide to think of it. And of course, the clock will be monitoring this when it happens. And sure enough, the moment he said, I'm going to burn those plants, the plants started freaking out, going, oh my God, they're going to burn our plants. This is why people who have a green thumb because they love their plants and the plants know it. That's why I still have plants from my mother that died back in 1992. Because they know I love those plants. I also understand that we are so interconnected that we're exchanging atoms with everything around us. Right now, this very moment, I'm exchanging atoms with everything. My dog's breathing out air, I'm breathing in her air. Everything is so interconnected, it's absolutely mind-boggling to realize that. So I always thought of those plants as having a lot of my mother in them, and that there's still part of her in there, and I always grab those plants and rub their leaves knowing that I'm getting part of my mother again. We live, again, life is an illusion. We are all one. We all come from the same energy that created this amazing universe that we have. I say raw specks of the green pea, little specks of the green pea, because scientists finally came out a few years back and they said, we used to say all the energy at one time could fit on the tip of the needle. Now they said, no, it's the size of a green pea. So all the energy at one time could fit inside a green pea, and that's formless energy. That's 0-point energy, and then that energy went into space, diluted itself, and it became formed energy, or tachyon energy, vibrating energy, which is nothing but that little speck of green pea with a bunch of empty space. To illustrate how much empty space there is, let me digress one more time. If you wanted to look at an atom in an orange, you'd have to blow the orange up to the size of the Earth. And then the atoms inside this orange, that's the size of the Earth, would be the size of cherries. That's how many atoms there are in an orange. Now if we look at the cherry, to look at the subatomic particles in there, we find that we could blow that cherry up to the size of several football fields, and then the protons, electrons, and neutrons would be little bitty pebbles here and there. All the rest is empty space. So the point I'm trying to get here is at one time, everything in our universe could fit in something the size of a green pea. Now, it's not hard to think about something on top of the green pea communicating to something at the bottom of the green pea when it's only the size of a green pea. Now, you expand that out into space, and it's, the universe. How can something on one side of the universe still communicate? It can, and it does, because that's what the biophotons are. You see, when energy steps down a level, when formless energy becomes formed energy, it emits light. That's the biophotons. That's what's inside all of us. And you can take those plants that Bose was doing experiments on and cook those plants. Now, you think that plant's going to read your mind? Hell no! We destroyed the plant. If you're going to argue any cooked food diet's better than a raw food diet, you're delusional. You could take a raw food vegan diet and put everybody on it and have all the deficiencies that we would have, and at least would get the hell out of this friggin' hell that we're in now because we're eating cooked food. Because cooked food just destroys the nutrient that feeds one of our senses. This is a no-brainer. Take a carrot and pull it out of the ground. Take two of them. Take one and go cook it. Bring the carrots back. Cut the carrot tops off. Bury the carrot tops in the ground. What's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. One's going to grow, one's not. We destroyed something in that plant. What was it? Well, we know we destroyed the enzymes, and we know we destroyed the biophotons, both by 100%. Now, you might argue saying, well, we don't need enzymes to digest food, but that's not the point. It's a dead plant. We destroyed it. And that's what we're doing to ourselves. We are what we eat. Why can't we extrapolate that? It's called denial, denial, denial. All you idiot cooked food apologists going, oh, cooked vegan is better than raw vegan. You're in denial. God. Do a little research and find out about biophotons. That's the secret, my friends. We're disconnected. I coined that condition hypoheliosis. On an individual level, hypoheliosis A. On a collective level, hypoheliosis B. I got rid of hypoheliosis A a long time ago, but I still got a hypoheliosis B because of all of you hypoheliosis A's. That's my mission, is to convert all you A's over and get rid of that so we don't have the B no more. That's how we crawl out of the rut. As long as most of us are disconnected, we will have the wrong mentality collectively. Things will never change unless we change our mentality, and the only way to change our mentality is for us to reach the tipping point, and that's where the first of my three-step process comes into play. Three main ways to correct 5 big mistakes. The first one destroyed one of our senses, and most of us aren't willing to do the other 2 ways, and you can do that. I have no objection at all, but we got to get everyone's attention. We need at least 10% of the population to do what Bill Bright already done. In 1 year, he had 14 million people doing what I'm talking about. So I'm not unrealistic. This has been done before, and we can do it again. We have the means right now with the internet to share my videos. Everything you need to know is in the description box below under my first step to get you going. The information's out there, but what you're going to find is a lot of confusion within the raw food community. But if we just stopped shooting inside the tent and got to the tipping point, and once enough of us started doing this, we would fine-tune this diet so there would be no deficiencies whatsoever. And the reason why we have them now is because we have 2 groups of needs, which I was explaining earlier, and I started digressing. The first group of needs, anatomical limitations, were given at birth. You can't deny that. No animal products, no plants, no grains, you vegetarians. We're not grainivores. Got to cook them, right? Okay. What does cooking do? It destroys the biophotons, destroys the enzymes, lose 30 to 70% of the vitamins. If you boil something in water and throw the water out, you lose 40% of the minerals. But you create carcinogenic substances. Acrylamides, the carbohydrates caramelize and they form a carcinogenic substance, acrylamides. We have always known fats are carcinogenic. What happens to the protein? We lose half the biological value when we cook the protein. They proved that at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Drop an egg into a skillet and you see the egg white coagulate right before your eyes. We destroyed that egg, that protein, and there's no magical way we can turn it back into what it was prior to that. Not to mention we shouldn't eat the egg to begin with. We don't need to be eating those. We are island creatures. We originated from the islands. We didn't originate in caves. To go back to the cave diet and the paleo diet is absurd. Sure, I've explained in the difference between a paleo and a vegan diet. You can look down below in the description box to watch that video. That at least the paleo people are not making the last 3 of those 5 mistakes, which is where we're eating grains and processed foods and chemicals. But they've only gone back to the cave days. That's not going back far enough. We got to go back to the island days and go back before the fall of mankind, where we fell under a spell because we started screwing with our food. Now it became a drug. We're eating things we're not biologically adapted to eat. So, overwhelming information, isn't it? Okay, why do raw diet? Why raw? Why cooked? Why raw is because that's the way we're supposed to do it. Why cooked? We're under a spell. The hunger spell, because when we cook our food, it creates a morbid sensation when we eat it. And it's just like any other drug. We have a withdrawal symptom. And what happens when we take our drug? We feel pretty good about it, don't we? That's why I'm very verbose and get down on these nutritional questionnaires like Dr. McCullough has, asking you, how do you feel after you take your drug of choice? Do you feel good after you eat your meat? You bozo. Of course you're going to feel good after your drug. Man, I love McCullough so much. He's doing so much good, but he undoes everything because he doesn't understand why his triglyceride levels were high, because he was cleansing when he first started eating fruit. And now he's so anti-fruit and pushing the animals, yet he knows about biophotons. So McCullough, you claim to eat raw meat. How do you reconcile that with all the people you're trying to get to follow your advice? I don't see you say anything about raw anymore, or at least the meat, but yet you keep promoting it and saying, here's some cooked food recipes for meat. Why is there so much confusion in nutrition? There shouldn't be any confusion at all. It shouldn't be any harder for us to figure out what to eat than it is for a deer. And it would be if society didn't attack early, when we were helpless, before we had the ability for critical thinking. We were taught the same mistakes that our parents were taught to us by our parents, and right off the bat we get addicted to the wrong food. We're under a spell. We start our journey off in life under a spell. Whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. That's what cooked food does. Why raw? Why cooked? Cooked, you're under a spell. You're in denial. You're delusional. And to figure that out, do the first of my 3-step process. Correct all 5 mistakes. Quit eating the wrong food. Go on a solid food vacation. Drink a gallon or 2, 4 to 8 liters of freshly made juice. And watch those biophotons come up, and watch some of that crap come out of you from eating all that dead cooked food. I don't care if it's plant food or not. You're not supposed to eat it. So, have I convinced anybody? They probably aren't with me at this stage, but who knows? Put your comments down below if you agree or disagree with me. We'll start a discussion on this, an honest, logical discussion, and there's no reason why we can't take one topic at a time like Socrates would do and discuss it logically and politely. I know we're on the internet and people seem to be idiots sometimes, and they many times don't mean to be. I know I'm not as good as expressing myself in the written word as I am verbally. And since I'm talking off the top of my head right now, when I do my videos, at least when I write it, I would correct the obvious mistakes I'm making. And I go, wait a second, I didn't even mean to say that. So I'm rambling once again. Only thing that's important is for us to test an idea as time has come so we can prove this to ourselves. I've said this many times, and I like what Aristotle said, believe only your own experience. There's no fact like a fact. Learn from your own life. Do what Arnold Ehret did. He would fast, get clean, and then test out the diets. That's what I did. I've been using myself as a guinea pig for over 30 years. I've documented everything I've eaten for the last 30 years. I've been paying attention to not just the food going in calorie-wise and comparing that to my exercise. I'm also looking at the food coming out. and the urine coming out. I'm making sure my kidneys are filtering. I'm making sure what I eat comes out at the right time. And what happens if I change things up? And I've realized that there really is some concern to pay attention to when you eat certain foods. There are a lot of food combining theories, and I've talked about this before in other videos, and the one that I like the most has to do with how fast food goes through the system. And I did a video on this called bowel transit time. I'll put a link down below. And that's the key right there is when we're eating the wrong foods we're not meant to eat, like cooked plant foods, then it changes the bowel transit time. And that's very important, because if it takes too long to go through this system, it's going to change the pressure in our colon, and it ends up polluting our blood, which goes everywhere and pollutes everything. So it's, again, it all goes back to we are what we eat. Raw versus cooked, I think it's a no-brainer. There are dozens of things that happen when we cook our food, and since it's so hard for the average person to eat raw food, my mission is to try to get all those people that know nothing about any of this, and let's just correct all 5 of these mistakes. Let's not eat any cooked food, let's not eat any animal products, let's not eat any grains, let's not eat any processed foods except for processing juices, and let's not use any chemicals. So when we correct those mistakes, you will have an aha moment after several months, and you'll realize, man, I really did well because I corrected those mistakes. Now, were all 5 of them mistakes? And I'm convinced they are. And you can see what you can get away with, and what you're going to find is different people will be able to handle meat better than others, or dairy better than others, just like some people can handle grains better than others. But just because we can handle those foods doesn't mean we're impervious to the fact that we shouldn't eat them. There's still danger that comes from eating foods we're not meant to eat. All we can do is just rely on our own experience. And then once we get clean, then we can test the diets out and see if you think that's the right food for you. In most cases, if you go the distance on a long cleanse and you go back to eating certain foods, you'll realize right away that's not giving you energy, it's taking away energy. It's not coming out of you fast enough. I've coached thousands of people, and one of the most common comments I hear from people after they do this is they say, I'm really in tune to my body now. I'm really aware of what's coming in and if it's going to go out. When you don't put anything in this food tube for maybe 2, 3, 4 months, take it one day at a time, you can see, okay, here come the cherries, there they go. Here come the bananas, there they go. I'll eat a salad. Wow, that looked a lot different, didn't it? And then you eat something wrong, you go, well, where's that coming at? And all of a sudden you see things overlapping, and we just have to we have to respect our body's anatomical limitations. Once again, there's 2 of them. The ones we were given at birth, we're not meant to eat animals or grains or cooked food, and the other anatomical limitations from making mistakes. Again, you can't blame the raw food diet. You cannot indict the raw food diet. You got to indict the mistakes we made that damaged ourselves so that we have deficiencies. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have deficiencies. There's not a flaw in our design. And if you look at our timeline, 99% of our existence, we weren't eating cooked food. To even suggest that we're doing something better now is a joke. That's the fall of mankind. That's when it changed our mentality. And you can't use the excuse that raw food diets don't work long term because there are some deficiencies as a reason to go to cooked food, because you're still disconnected and you're still eating the wrong food. So where do you go from here? It's simple. Testing ideas, time has come. And when you do, you're in for a treat.